Hey, I'll see you on tour in Las Vegas, Chicago, and Grand Rapids. In Chicago, it's stand-up and a live panel show. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets, and make sure you go to jimmydore.com. You remember last week we talked about Idaho has a water crisis. Farmers face drought fines. In Idaho, the Department of Water Resources had ordered farmers to shut off water to over 500,000 acres of crops due to water shortages, imposing fines and $300 per acre for continued use. This decision has sparked widespread concern and discussion on social media, with many expressing worry that the potential impact on food supply and prices. Some users have called for action. Here's another headline. Idaho farmers say water curtailment order will dry up their land and push them out of business. Well, I thought it had something to do with, there it is. Today, they're confronting 70%. Okay, so I thought it had something to do with the cobalt mining, but here's Dan Leavitt is here to tell us. He is a native Idahoan who served in the military for 12 years, including 3 combat tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. He played a pivotal role in establishing the first in-nation service dog program for fellow wounded soldiers, led by active duty service members of the military. He is currently the Republican candidate seeking election to represent District 25B in the Idaho House of Representatives, and he's got some info on this for us. Hey, David, thank you for coming on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jimmy. I really appreciate being on the show and being able to talk about this issue and I guess lay some of the claims to rest.
So go ahead, please explain why did they cut off the water? Is the water still cut off, and what's the real story?
No, the water's no longer cut off. They did come up with an agreement. They came up with an agreement on June 19th to prevent the curtailment. And what it stems back to is in Idaho, we have a thing called first in time, first in right as far as water rights go. And these first in time, first in right water rights go back to the 1900s and deal with the surface water rights or senior water rights, which attribute to southern Idaho. Then in eastern Idaho, you have junior water rights, which stem from the 1960s. And these water rights are basically the groundwater usage. And so what ended up happening is that you have eastern Idaho, which sits at a higher elevation than southern Idaho, and the water flows down towards the Magic Valley, which is the southern Idaho. And with that water, there's a lot of tributaries and small springs that feed the surface water irrigation system. So when you take away from the aquifer in eastern Idaho, it mitigates the levels of water that we get in southern Idaho, which impacts a lot of the farmers through the southern Idaho area.
So this was a fight between eastern Idaho farmers and southern Idaho farmers?
Yes, it was a fight between the two about the water usage, because in eastern Idaho, they rely heavily on the aquifer with the groundwater. So they drill wells and they use the well water and pump the well water out to go and water their fields in those areas. In southern Idaho, we use surface water, which is the irrigation canals and reservoirs.
Okay.
And which side is controlled by the Mormons?
Both.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
And so, there's a very large Mormon population inside that as well as inside of eastern Idaho area.
So how did it come to that, David? How did it come to them shutting off the water? They were shutting off the water to southern Idaho or eastern?
It was going to be eastern Idaho, because eastern Idaho is where a lot of the watershed comes from like the Teton Mountain Range in that area. So you look at it, and it's kind of up towards where Yellowstone National Park's at. So there's a substantial amount of water that comes through that area that recharges the aquifer right there at the waterhead in eastern Idaho. And so it's kind of like drinking from a hose, where the first person that goes and drinks from the hose is going to get the best water, where the person at the end is not going to want to get the water, or it's going to be depleted substantially.
And so
that's kind of where it comes from.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
But no, as far as all the way that this worked is there was 2 agreements that were made. One was in 2009, another one in 2016, as far as water curtailment, because we've been using so much water that we've been pumping too much water out of the aquifer. So there were some recharge efforts that were put into place to go and mitigate a lot of that water loss. And basically what happened is eastern Idaho had saved up a lot of water and used up some of the water, or not used as much water as they were allocated. And so they're trying to save kind of for a dry season. And what happened in 2021 is we had a dry year. And so they used up that excess water, which took water from southern Idaho. So they didn't get as much water as what they should have been appropriated. So that's where a lot of this stems from. And so this whole curtailment was to help recharge the aquifer as well as give that water back to southern Idaho.
And so what was the agreement they came up with?
Well, the agreement they came up with is they forgave eastern Idaho for taking that water, and they opened up all the curtailment as far as like allowing people to go and pump. But there's mitigation efforts as far as like they're supposed to return back to the initial agreements. And there's a new agreement that's in the works, and they have until October 1st to create a mitigation agreement for the following year for 2025 and beyond.
And so do you think it's now worked out?
I think there's a lot of things we can look at to make things work out, because everybody likes to go and cry over spilled milk. And, you know, I'm kind of beyond that. It's like I want to look beyond into the future to go and see how we can provide ample water for everybody. And I think this means revitalizing some of the infrastructure, whether that's with our reservoirs and raising the size and levels of the reservoirs, or even rebuilding the reservoir like the Teton Dam, which failed in the 1970s.
Oh, I didn't know that. I've been to the Tetons, by the way, just as a kid. Yeah, as a kid, I was there. So saw a lot of stars.
Big.
See a lot of stars. What's that?
Next to the Tetons in there.
Okay, all right. So it didn't have anything to do with the cobalt mining.
No, it didn't have anything to do with the cobalt mining. The cobalt mine that you're referring to is about 100 miles from the Snake River Plain aquifer. And that mine, it's like everybody's been talking about, like the $15 million and everything that went to that mine from Ukraine funding.
Yeah.
What that was really about is we have such a reliance and dependence on China for rare earth elements as well as rare earth metals that, and everybody kind of knows this at this point, that they're trying to ramp up for another war, which I'm absolutely against. And I think a lot of Idahoans are against it too. Even the Idaho Republican Party recently, they adopted some rules. So under their platform, under Article 17, Section 8, they're taking a non-intervention role as far as these foreign policies and foreign wars go. And they're also saying that Congress needs to formally declare war under Article 1, Section 8 of the United States Constitution before they'll want to involve ourselves with any foreign conflicts. But as far as the mineral rights go, we're so dependent on China for the refinement of everything. And it's infuriating that we're having to go and deal with this in the first place. But they use that $15 million to kind of mothball that mine. So they have sort of a turnkey operation as a contingency in case we do go to war, we still have access to the cobalt.
Okay. So, you know what? I mean, you're a veteran, and what I say is, first of all, we're being run by crazy neocons, right? The Biden administration, as far as that stuff goes, way worse than Donald Trump's administration. Donald Trump looked for solutions like a businessman where everybody's happy. And he even gave a speech where he said, China doesn't have to be our enemy. Russia doesn't have to be our enemy. That is not what Joe Biden and the neocons in the Democratic Party is saying. They want war. They're warmongers, and they're pushing towards a nuclear war. Right now, we have Russia putting hypersonic missiles and nuclear submarines off the coast of Florida because of our warmongering. This is in response, right? So, but I don't understand how we could ever go to war with China when they make all our stuff, right? That doesn't make sense, does it?
No, it doesn't make sense to me either. I mean, we rely so much on China for everything, and I'm sorry, but their products are really cheap. And it really does a disservice to the American citizens, because it's like you look at, well, we have a lot of people that are unemployed, that are dependent on welfare programs and things like that, that could be at work making a living. Idaho, for instance, it's like we have an abundance of wealth with our resources as far as minerals go. I mean, we probably have enough to go in the deficit with the minerals that we have. But the problem is, federal government occupies roughly 63% of our land mass. And on top of that, I mean, you talk about this all the time, and that is, it's like we've exported a lot of our industries and our pollution to places like China. They don't have the same regulations that we do. And I think that if we were going to bring a lot of those industries back, that we could do it a lot cleaner and a lot more efficient than China could ever do.
Well, you know, I guess it certainly would be against my brand to say open up federal lands to mining, right? But what, Kurt?
I mean, China does a great job with our viruses. Don't you think they can handle with our viral research and gain of function? They do a really bang up job.
Yeah. So the idea is, I really can't. Even the maniacs inside the Biden administration, the neocons running things, the Antony Blinkens and the Victoria Newlands. I don't even think they can actually think that we could have a sustainable war against China. It would be a disaster for everybody, especially the United States, because it would hurt us again, just like this. Proxy war with Russia that we have vis-a-vis Ukraine, that's hurting us way more than it's hurting Russia.
Almost like that was the purpose and not weakening Russia.
It's almost. No, they thought they could balkanize Russia, and they're just maniacs, and they thought they could, split it up and give it to Blacklock, which is what they're doing to Ukraine.
You know, Anthony Blinken's dad was Ghislaine Maxwell's father's lawyer?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he went to that Dalton school, the Epstein one.
All right, well, I'm glad that the Idaho water crisis is over. Thank you for coming on and straightening us out on this. And
it's not quite over yet, because it's like there's other issues that are going on here in Idaho. Because you guys were talking about some other stuff like these green infrastructure projects. Is one of the big issues? I don't know if you know much about Lava Ridge Wind Project.
No,
where they're with these massive wind turbines on top of our aquifer. We live on a plain of basalt rock. Basalt rock is a very porous rock, and it's a very frail rock. And they do continual blasting. And, we're worried about our water as it is. And they have this big corporations that are coming out of New York that are basically like, we're going to put in this energy, and then we're going to export it out of the state.
My God. Jesus Christ.
It's crazy what's been going on. Because, they're throwing millions, if not billions of dollars at these infrastructure projects. And we don't want these things. It's like, if we really care about the environment, if we wanted green energy, we'd be looking at going and revitalizing some of our aquifer or our reservoirs and doing hydroelectric energy instead of these wind turbines. Here in Idaho, they're going to have some of the largest ones in the United States. You're looking with the new environmental impact study. They want to have these windmills are going to be over 640 feet tall. And,
wow.
And it's going to take up an area mass of almost 40,000 acres.
Wow.
And as I learned through that Michael Moore movie, that there's a big carbon footprint associated with windmills, and they're not recyclable.
Oh, also they kill whales. The whales commit suicide from the noise. It drives them crazy. The ones they put in the water because there's not enough wind on the. They put in the water, and the sound. That's why I keep hearing the boats getting attacked by whale. What do you call them? The Shamu whales.
Killer whales.
Yeah. All these pods of these kind of large mammals, and they're going nuts from it. The noise.
Well, I've seen reports on that too. Go ahead, David.
Oh, I was gonna say I'm not too worried about the whales, but I am worried about like birds of prey and the migratory patterns of a lot of like the large game animals in the area.
Yeah, well, they don't do well with it.
No, they don't. It's like how dad they run in those turbines. They should have gotten out of the way, I guess. But and it's sad because if you or I were to go and hurt one of these animals, it's like we'd be looking at prison time. But for these people, it's like, well, that's okay. We'll let you slide.
Yeah, it's cost of doing business.
Well, if it screws up your food chain of your area, it's more synergistic because then Bill Gates could give you that.
He can give you that fake meat.
Yeah, that fake meat that comes from cow abortions.
And you could eat bugs.
Right. Well, and I think that's kind of like with the premise is what they're trying to do with this water. They're creating this division and this chaos. And they're trying to do a consolidation because if they change our water rights from first in right, first in time to first in need, all it's going to do is they're going to have like these corporate farms that are going to be too big to fail, and they're just going to decimate all of our small farms. Yeah. I'm not okay with that.
So why are the politicians in Idaho allowing New York companies to come in and put these windmills in there?
Well, that's a really great question. And my only thought process is that, somebody's paying for their campaign.
Oh, okay.
They're a cheap date.
So you got corrupt government in Idaho. Who'd have thought?
It's almost like the real green agenda is to make a lot of people, not alive anymore. It's the real cutting down on the pollutants. It's actually just people are eating and drinking water too much and breathing.
Well, I appreciate you coming on the show, David, because it shows a lot of courage. Because I don't know if you know, but the Boise comedy venues won't book me, even though
what a bunch of losers.
Even though I would sell out their venues, they my politics is too unsavory for them.
You said Patriot Front wasn't a real thing, and don't you remember they nearly disrupted a Boise gay pride parade?
Oh, that's right.
And
they nearly
put misinformation. They're not a real group.
That's right. So anyway,
we have to look at some other venues. It's like we got some great venues out in my neck of the woods in Twin Falls area as well as Eastern Idaho, and And I know you've been to the Salt Lake area and been.
Oh yeah, we're very, very. And that's not that we're not popular in those areas. It's the venues don't like us. But anyway, Twin Falls. Maybe we'll take a look at Twin Falls, huh, Misha? David, I have to move on. I appreciate you coming on. Please give me a heads up if you have any more info that's pertinent to what's happening in Idaho. We'd love to have you back.
Awesome. Thank you, Jimmy.
Okay, take care. Hey, let me just say, you work hard to support your family, but it may seem as though you are taking a step back every month instead of taking a step forward. When the bills are higher than what you bring in every month, you have to swipe that credit card to cover the difference, right? And the debt keeps adding up. But if you own a home, our friends over at American Financing can help you break free from that cycle. American Financing is saving people like you an average of $854 a month. Think about what you could do with that extra $854 a month and not having to worry about those minimum monthly payments. And even better, it costs nothing to find out how much you can save. All it takes is a quick call to American Financing, and if you start today, you may be able to delay 2 mortgage payments. Call American Financing today and start your journey towards being credit card and debt-free. That's 888-804-0303. That's 888-804-0303. Or visit AmericanFinancing.net/Jimmy. AmericanFinancing.net/Jimmy. Hey, I'll see you on tour in Las Vegas, Chicago, and Grand Rapids. In Chicago, it's stand-up and a live panel show. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets, and make sure you go to jimmydore.com.